Alex Terrace here, back with another review video covering the new Cloud Centropix PMF. Had a lot of requests over the last couple years to do a video on this since there's a lot of buzz around it. There's a lot of buzz and enthusiasm and excitement, mainly just because it's newer in the industry and the company itself is doing pretty good marketing. By good, I mean they're just gaining a lot of product awareness, and I don't really agree with their approach in terms of how they're spreading confusing information that is getting a lot of people to buy this, when I really feel that it might be something that an individual should not invest in. But either way, we're going to pick this apart. This is actually a second video that I'm doing on Centropix Cloud. So if you haven't seen my other one, I do have a PEMF playlist that I've just put together. So go searching for that on my channel. There should be a link at the below in this video as well, and below in the description to that other video, which is another deep dive. Now in this video, we'll be going into more of the marketing side and also walking through how to become more discerning and what to look for, just in general, when you're looking into PEMF, because some of the sales and marketing techniques that this company is using, Cloud Centropix, is not necessarily unusual. This is a lot of the same techniques are used by other companies. And I do also have my preferred brand out there, which sometimes I reference to. If you have any questions about that, or other brands for that matter, I do act as an advisor, consultant. I'm also a dealer, distributor. I play many roles. You can email me anytime with questions. Or if you have ideas for new videos, put them below in the comments on this video, and I'd be happy to make another video reviewing something else. And you can email me anytime and I can give you a response and guidance 7 days a week. Anyways, moving into this. So Centropix PMF marketing. Now, I just want to be clear that I am basing my presentation here on the content that you can find at the website, centropix.com. Okay, so this is their website. This is actually a specific page off of their website that I click to off their main homepage, where citations in here are coming from. This is coming from the company's own content. Now, a lot of this content and a lot of the marketing concepts and strategies are also done or executed by their sales reps or people promoting it, as well as at their live events when they're doing a 1 or 2 day conference thing in a hotel, that sort of thing. You'll see a lot of the same marketing concepts being used there as well. What are we going to title this? Well, really this is a deep dive into the science-sounding marketing language, empty claims, and diving into, of course, also what are they really admitting to in the fine print. Those are hidden disclosure statements, which are surprising when you see them. And what else we'll also be touching on is the vague scientific sounding language, no measurable effects, undefined buzzwords, and marketing misdirection. You'll see a lot of the poetic, unscientific claims that sound impressive but really deliver questionable results. And really what I mean by deliver questionable results is we really just are left with a big question mark. We don't actually know. Even in the case of Cloud Centropix, we don't know. We have no idea what are the results, what it's actually doing. PMF devices like Centropix, they cost thousands of dollars. They put a lot of time into their marketing, sound scientific, really lacks substance. Health choices, honestly, should really be based on evidence, not poetic descriptions. I think everybody would agree with that. And really, high-end PMF devices in general cost thousands of dollars. Consumers deserve to know what they're really buying. And there's also health consequences, right? Relying on unproven technologies instead of evidence-based treatments can delay effective care, honestly. Somebody might have the choice between getting some lab panels and working with a functional medicine practitioner, and that costs this amount of money, or they might be looking into hyperbaric treatments, some IV thing, or whatever it is. You have the idea. And so people are trying to figure out how they budget, right? How they're going to spend their money on what treatments, what modalities, what practitioners are really going to help them, right? I get a little pissed off, and I also get a little frustrated with a lot of these companies because they do such a damn good job with their marketing confusion, and people invest a lot of money in things that I just don't think is worth investing in. It's not going to give them that therapeutic ROI. This is coming from somebody that has researched and sold a wide variety of wellness equipment over the last 15 plus years. My job is, in many ways, actually, many times, is to guide people on what is worth investing in, what will give them that therapeutic ROI, and how to budget for that accordingly. Really learning to decode scientific sounding language will help you make smarter purchase decisions in really all health categories. In this presentation, what we're really exposing is the marketing language. We'll be decoding that and exposing 6 major red flags that help sell this multi-$1,000 PEMF device. And we'll find out that really there's just empty claims, which honestly 90+%, it's most of them, most of the PEMF out there, most brands have empty claims. These little numbers down here, these are the red flags, if you will. Let's go through them. What did I find in my research? Vague scientific sounding language. And again, we'll go into actually specific examples for all these, just if you're wondering. Every single one of these we have slides for. What is that? That's basic science concepts that are dressed up as profound insights, and also usually trying to be attempted to be associated with or affiliated with a particular brand or equipment or model. Undefined buzzwords, impressive terms that are never properly defined, admitting no measurable effects, hidden disclaimers that their energy isn't real. So I still have to laugh about this one, discovering this. Anyways, battery analogy deception. This is when they are selling a concept while disclaiming it's just a metaphor. Trigger effects without evidence. These are their claims of biological effects with absolutely no proof or mechanism. The readiness cop-out. This is when they're claiming to make your body ready instead of actually doing something. That would be, I don't know, I've been trying to think of a funny analogy for this. It'd be like if you hired me as a health coach, I guess. You have specific health goals in mind, and that to get better or whatever your goal is, you actually have to take action. Everybody knows that. It's not like I'm going to coach you and you don't have to do anything. You won't have to take any actions once you hire me. Wouldn't that be great? So imagine now you pay me a few $1,000, I'm coaching you. And I'm just like, I'm going to coach you to be ready to change your life. I'm going to coach you to be ready to transform your health for $3,000 something. You'd be like, get out of here. Are you kidding me? You scam artist? Get out of here. Would that not be your reaction? Well, it's a pretty darn spot on analogy for what's happening here with Cloud Centropix. And when we actually break this down and you see it on in their marketing content, yeah, it's jaw dropping. Anyways, bottom line, what Cloud Centropix and really several other companies, unfortunately, what they actually admit about their products is far less impressive than what their marketing implies, which sounds like the best thing ever. It makes it really easy to whip out your credit card. All right, let's jump into vague scientific language and really touch on exact citations examples that they are saying. So they say, in quotes, the natural adaptability of organic life to constantly changing internal and external conditions is driven by complex interactions of electrons, atoms, and molecules. Which, sounds cool. It's a good beginning to something. Here's my brutally honest translation. Living things exist and are made of matter. It's your basic 8th grade science disguised as profound insight to sound impressive. They use complex wording, poetic language, if you will, to describe fundamental science that explains nothing about their product. No specific claims. Notice how they describe general biology, but make no testable claims about what their device actually does. So there's a word for that. Remember the who, what, where, when, how? Well, in my videos, and the way I like to guide consumers is exploring one of those, especially the HOW, how. When you read something like that, it's perfectly acceptable to start a paragraph or article or something like that. That's fine. That's cool. But this should start to have some relevance in the next sentences as far as why are we talking about what matter is made of, right? What's the connection with this device? What's the connection with the modality? And if there is a connection, should that be explained with an HOW, a how? Moving on. Undefined buzzwords. Centropix liberally uses scientific sounding terms throughout their marketing that they either don't define or are using in non-scientific ways. So there's a lot of them, but these are some of the main most commonly used ones. Activation energy. Here is just one of many examples of where they're using it. So activation energy, what they say about that is the course of physical and or chemical interactions basically presupposes preceding activations. Just as one must first bring a sled up the mountain before a downhill run, a supply of energy is required. I remember when I read that off this page, I'd be honest, I had to read it a few times. I was, gosh, is this just my brain today? Am I just not at my best? No, everybody has to read that several times. And then you understand in the translation that basically what they're saying is a scientific term, activation energy, a scientific term for the energy needed to start a chemical reaction is pre-purposed into a vague marketing concept without defining how their device actually provides this activation energy or how it's measured. It's really where they're at least is how they come across, is they're more on the hypothesis stage. Because usually theories you gotta test out. I'd say they're erring more on the stage. If we call it the scientific process, if you're going to invent something, I'm going to invent a new PMF. I think everybody remembers the hypothesis stage. That's the beginning. That's the big idea where we just aren't really sure we can prove it. And it's where you start. Everybody starts with an idea and some concepts and marries them together and then just tries to test and see what happens, right? That's really where they're at with a lot of this in the hypothesis. So I say really activation energy in the concept here. This type of stuff could be possibly proven in the future at some point. I don't know who's going to prove it. This company's been around already enough of the time where they probably could have spent some money on trying to prove some of these things, but they haven't. And if they already haven't initiated and attempted to try to prove really what we're talking about here with any chunk of money, and it doesn't have to be a lot, $50,000, $100,000, $150,000, you have to wonder, is just some random third-party entity going to do it? Unlikely. So they say molecular activation, this is where molecular activation plays a role. And that's what they said in that sentence. And the translation of that is, a molecular activation is a completely undefined term that sounds scientific but has no established meaning in biology or physics. Because mostly it's just completely vague, right? So in other words, if you used it as part of some other actual scientific concepts in a sentence, you could potentially use that to communicate something. But as it stands, as they're using it, yeah, it can't stand on its own legs. Does that make sense? And it doesn't have an established meaning in biology or physics on its own. So this allows them essentially to make claims without being held to any scientific standard. So it's in the field of sales, sales and marketing, something called handling objections. Objections might be where you, the consumer, ask a question, you hear and learn something, and you're like, yeah, but what about this? What about that? Or can you prove that? Or you told me this. Can you guarantee that that's what's happening? You get the idea, right? So because I need to know that before I buy it. Like that, we would call it in sales an objection. But if you are making up statements where you're not really making any claim of any substance at all, and you can compare it to anything, it is harder technically to come up with an objection, essentially. So this is, let's say, sneaky marketing. It's sneaky sales, where this works on almost a subconscious level. So when you feed somebody just a lot of this type of stuff, this strategy, it just goes into their brain. And actually what happens is it overwhelms them, a part of the brain with a lot of information. And it also gets very confusing. I'm not going to walk you through the full neuropsychology of sales, which is fascinating, but this actually really does work. And heck yeah, we all know it works. This company's made a lot of money already selling these things. A lot of people are buying them. But that's part of it. If we made a specific thing, we said molecular activation of ATP, molecular activation of the catalase enzyme, which did this with the antioxidants in the liver. I don't know, right? How specific that is. Then that increases the likelihood where you're going to be, hey, I want to improve my liver, like you said this, or you said this specific thing about this enzyme. Yeah, that can immediately come back on them. So when companies use undefined scientific sounding terms, it creates an illusion of scientific backing without providing any testable claims. You can't verify what doesn't have a clear definition, essentially. So now that you know that, really my tip to you would be always ask a company, a salesperson, whatever, what exactly does this term mean and how is it measured? So if they can't define it clearly, be skeptical. And just to be honest, it's embarrassing when you actually just ask that about these terms to people involved in some way with this product and company. just watch them trip over themselves. Like, it's sad, honestly. And admitting no measurable effects. Their actual words. The form of life energies addressed here are symbolic, not a physical basic quantity clearly defined by energy units, joules. Joules is what they usually use with different types of energy medicine devices, even medical devices, where they're sending energy in the body and it's having specific energetic effects on tissues, because you can measure other processes in the body in joules, okay? Again, that's their statement. But this is actually a hidden legal disclaimer. It's crazy. So they're basically, in that statement, which is pulled from this page, probably somewhere else too, they're admitting their product doesn't create any measurable objective energy effects. The energy is purely symbolic. It's crazy. I mean, I respect them, I guess, also, just for admitting it. But the way that, but if you read this and you read it within the totality of this whole thing here, it's really confusing. It takes a while to understand that, oh my God, they're literally just admitting that, yeah, that basically it explicitly states the effects can't be measured in actual energy units, so the statement protects them from claims of measurable outcomes. And it's a marketing contradiction. They charge thousands for a device that admittedly doesn't produce measurable energy. Here's the thing. What they're doing is perfectly acceptable for the new category called PEMA. They just created this whole new category. The A at the end stands for activation. PEMA. It's acceptable. This is all acceptable for that new modality, that new category. But you're probably really confused now because you're thinking, Alex, I was looking at this because I was interested in maybe getting a PEMF device. Oh, good. All right, well, you probably don't actually have to watch any more of this video because now you know, they literally tell you on their website and everywhere that the Cloud Centropix device is a PEMA device. So if you're looking for PEMF, you can just end the video right now, unless you just want to learn how to be more discerning as a consumer. But outside of that, that's basically probably where I should have began my video. This is a review of a PEMA device, not a PEMF device. Yeah, super confusing. That's why this is acceptable here. So if you were thinking, hey, I want to have this energetic effect on my body that does different good things for my body with the energy, and I was looking for PEMF, well, that is not this, because they're literally telling you the energy is symbolic. I know, it's crazy. Red flag number 4, battery analogy. And this is where they take and they go even further into the energy metaphor symbology. So Centropix heavily uses the battery recharging metaphor. And if you're wondering where that is, and it's all over the place, but that's literally where the front page beginning of their whole pitch starts on their PEMF. So they're considering this whole concept very important for marketing. They use the battery recharging metaphor in their marketing to sell the concept that their device will recharge your energy. Recharge, replenish, but they cleverly disclaim this very metaphor in the fine print. So their actual words. The vernacular often speaks of recharging an empty battery. This supply of electromagnetic energy thus does not correspond to the essence of a range extension in energy, that's e-mobility, energy mobility, by increasing the battery charge. Do you see how that's phrased? Maybe that is out of Kafka's mouth. Who knows, right? And maybe he was speaking another language. Maybe it was German, and maybe it's a translation. This is a bit more acceptable. But you see, if you read that once, you're probably, Alex, yeah, I'm not quite understanding what they're saying here. Yeah, me neither. So it took me a little while to really pick this apart. And so what's happening actually is a bait and switch. So what's the bait and switch? So they hook you with the familiar recharge your battery on a cellular level concept, and then legally disclaim that it's not actually like charging a battery when you're using this thing. What the heck? The contradictory language protects them from claims of literal energy transfer while still selling the metaphor. They're admitting that when they say recharge, they don't actually mean measurable energy is being transferred to your body. So they're now going, again, off onto the lone island called PEMA, let's say. So on that lone island, they're not a part of the PEMF discoveries, if you will, where we got into things in the field of electromedicine in general about how we could affect transmembrane potential, cell voltage of cells. So you might have heard the term cell voltage. Dr. Jerry Tennant, by the way, is not really the original guy to Dr. Robert Becker is more that guy. And then there was a couple of scientists prior as well, decades prior, where that kind of term came about. Dr. Robert Becker, by the way, was elected twice for winning Nobel Prizes. Not elected, but was in the running twice for Nobel Prizes. And he actually worked on a specific PEMF device. Interesting, huh? The one that I love the most. He also worked with an actual Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Linus Pauling, top 20 scientist, biggest contributor of all time to the field of science, who also worked on the same PEMF project. Wow. And that really only happened with one PEMF device. So if you want to know about that one, just reach out. Anyways, so cell voltage is something that has been thrown around with a lot of PEMF companies, actually. But these other companies came after, for the most part, or tried to mirror or mimic or copy the best one out there that actually did crack the code on cell voltage with PEMF. And it requires a specific type of waveform that is actually capable of influencing ion transfer. So if you can't influence ion transfer, you basically can't have an effect on transmembrane potential and the membrane itself and ATP and all these different things. You can't actually basically have a direct effect on quote-unquote recharging the cell, which is really, again, talking about cell voltage. It's talking about the transmembrane potential. When you start to get into very specific concepts like that, there's certain metabolic paths to influence those things, obviously. And the understanding of those metabolic concepts goes way beyond PEMF, just FYI. It's just in the field of health science, biology. But there, to date, even though there's many PEMF that talk about cell voltage from this concept of recharging your energy in your cells, 95% of the same companies, they can't back up that claim. So that's what you find today. When you look at most websites and most claims by PEMF, they talk a lot about different health benefits, but not all of them, but most of those benefits come out of or the product of influencing ion transport. When they say recharge, we don't actually mean, remember, any measurable energy being transferred to your body, just like all the other PEMF. Even though there's a lot of PEMF out there that don't really help you very much with a wide variety of things, they're kind of minimal in their therapeutic scope of action. What all PEMF have in common, though, is there is measurable energy being transferred into the body. That's PEMF. But we're talking about PEMA, right? So these trigger effects, which are supposed to lead the initiation of different cascades of biochemical reaction chains in the manner of domino effects. These are trigger effects, again, they're explaining the above. These are trigger effects which are supposed to lead the initiation of different cascades of biochemical reaction chains in the manner of domino effects. What does that mean? Supposed to lead means we have no proof this happens. The key phrase here is they only claim what their device is supposed to do, not what it actually does. This is the scientific equivalent of saying, trust me, bro. They're smart. If you were like, I'm going to sue you for false advertising, you would not win that case. I guarantee you. They probably, I have no doubt in my mind, hired some kind of legal expert, lawyer, probably in the product consumer space, to go through all of their marketing content and copy. So no mechanism explained. They don't explain how their specific electromagnetic signals cause these trigger effects or cascades. Sounds cool though, right? There's no studies or reference, no peer-reviewed studies showing these trigger effects actually occur with your device. The hand wave. Classic marketing technique, use impressive sounding theoretical effects without proving they happen. As a hypothesis, or when you're trying to slowly build a theory, sometimes you can reference, again, other third-party studies where there might be some similar operating principles, and you can infer and imagine, hey, maybe this could be happening based off X, Y, and Z, but they're not even doing that. They're just off on, I say, Lone Island PEMA. So red flag number 6, the Readiness Cop-Out. What they claim, an external application of pulsating electromagnetic fields aimed at the compensation of disturbances, thus merely aims at an increase of the readiness to react of the interaction partners involved in the regulation process. Who do they think is really reading and digesting this? Honestly, it's ridiculous. When a company says their device merely aims at an increase of readiness to react, they're using elaborate language to make a non-claim while sounding scientific. So here's the translation of this. I don't even know what we would call it. Our device doesn't actually do anything measurable. It just makes your body ready to do things. I'll tell you, how many videos on YouTube in the health world where we just talk about, hey, we're going to work on your health by making you ready. Well, you got to carry out actual actions and reactions. Everybody even actually knows that on a biological standpoint, right? We at least all know that there's these actions and reactions in the body where processes are actually carried out, like the actual action. I think almost everybody understands that concept. So literally what they're saying is we're only half that concept. Or just readiness. So before actual processes happen, before all the things that really matter, the actual actions, we're working in the first part. So in other words, nothing may happen. Hypothetically, absolutely nothing may happen. It's basically a non-claim. So by saying it merely aims at something, they're admitting there's no guaranteed effect, or any effect at all, really. Yeah, same thing. Readiness equals no results. They're selling expensive readiness with no measurable outcomes or guarantees. I mean, when you read this stuff, you're listen, at this point, there's other modalities out there. There's other products. There's supplements. There's all kinds of things. There's thousands of things. I could just go on and on and on and on. What they all have in common? They do actually have an effect that is fairly measurable a lot of the times. So anyways, what Centropix is really admitting to. So when you strip away all the scientific sounding language and marketing poetry, what Centropix is actually admitting about their cloud devices, there's no measurable energy. Life energies addressed here are symbolic, not a physical basic quantity, clearly defined by energy units, joules. So there's no measurable energy being involved or exchanging or happening in your body. It's not actually recharging you. And that, again, that's how they state it right there. Hypothetical effects. So these are trigger effects. They're supposed to lead to biochemical reaction chains. And then it's just, at the end of the day, it's just a readiness device. So it's just merely aims at an increase of readiness to act, not actual effect, just potential raise. So that's it. It's a joke, right? When you look at it on a glance at. So the bottom line is they're selling an expensive device, carefully wording their marketing to admit it creates no measurable energy, only has symbolic effects, and at best makes your body ready for something, all while avoiding making any specific provable claims. I keep saying it's acceptable on PEMA Island. PEMA Island, right? Because that island just popped up. It's brand new. Nobody knows anything. Nobody knows anything about it. Yeah, so I could be wrong 5-10 years. But really, it's right now. It was $200. Do you see what I'm saying? Now we're back to price. Sure, I'd take a chance and jump onto PEMA Island for $200. You see, who wouldn't? Unless you don't have $200. But it's over $3,000. Watch for these marketing tactics, not just about this device, but other PEMF and really, honestly, any other type of wellness equipment that you might be reviewing. Look for scientific sounding terms that aren't clearly defined or explained. Again, using terms like molecular activation, Cloud does, without explaining exactly what molecules are being activated and how. That's a red flag. Qualifying language. Watch for phrases supposed to, aims at, or may help, instead of direct statements about what the device actually does. These are legal protections suggesting they can't guarantee results. It's a whole other thing to be crafting language where it's really just trying to, it's basically crafting language to justify a price point and as a sales strategy to keep your consumers confused enough and or to also to be convincing enough to just get them to swipe their credit card. When companies describe their effects as symbolic rather than physical or admit their energy isn't measurable in standard units, joules, they're admitting there's no actual energy transfer. No peer-reviewed research. Be skeptical of companies that don't cite specific peer-reviewed studies testing their exact device and waveform. Testimonials in general PEMF research aren't substitutes for device-specific evidence. I was thinking, actually, how come they were so crazy here with their confusing language about basically ensuring that they're not claiming anything at all, including this device does anything for you. And then I realized, Kafka was involved with creating the Beamer signal. Beamer is a very profitable, big PEMF company. And I was wondering, how did Kafka actually come out of that and say, I was creator of the Beamer signal, and I was wondering if there was a risk of a lawsuit. I know the patent on the waveform expired, so maybe it wasn't much of a risk. But I'm wondering if there was concerns that Kafka and Cloud had about a potential lawsuit, throwing Beamer's name around. You get what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm just trying to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. Okay, maybe this is why their language is so crafty, because Beamer would have a very hard time suing them when essentially it's not even a PEMF device. You get what I'm saying? It's not even a PEMF device. It's a PEMA, and it doesn't do anything according to their own language. So how would Beamer ever successfully sue them? It's just suing them for a completely different modality, if that makes sense. Kafka made a light bulb, and Beamer's suing them. You see what I'm saying? You're not going to win that. It has nothing to do with the Beamer. It has nothing to do with the PEMF. Anyways, ask for specific measurable outcomes, clear mechanisms of action, and peer-reviewed research. Let's scroll on down. Be an informed consumer. Do your research. Talk to Alex. Anyways, you get the idea. If you have any questions about other specific brands of PEMF, I think probably, though, after watching a couple of my videos, you most likely will feel way more confident about your ability to do your due diligence in general. But if, again, you want my help, I do also, just full disclosure, I do sell some PEMF as well. I sell the one that I love the most, that's got the most research on it in the industry and has a unique patented waveform, things like that. There's that one that I really love, and then I sell a couple other ones that are best suited for more localized applications. Their waveforms are square wave and sine and things like that. I sell a couple of those types of brands. They're smaller units, but those are really only justifiably good for certain types of musculoskeletal issues. They have a very narrow therapeutic scope of action. But PEMF is capable of a heck of a lot more for your body and can affect the body in a vast amount of ways. But I've really, again, only ever found a specific waveform that is capable of truly interacting with core cellular processes. So if you have any questions about that, and that's what you're after, those pinnacle health benefits of what might be possible with PEMF, just reach out. My email address is below in the description.